All right, let's talk Texas Longhorns. This is the best team in the country. I think we all understand that going into the regular season. But look, rankings matter for what they are. Pretty much nothing at this point because now we're into training camp. It's all about getting better, getting ready for the regular season, and finally making a run at the first national title since that dominant Vince Young performance in the Rose Bowl so many years ago. All eyes are on the quarterback position, of course, but there's another young guy that's emerging for Texas that if you listen to the coaching staff, they are very high on. I think he'll be a playmaker day one. Great news for UT here. We'll get into that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Texas Longhorn laced with talent, stacked with talent. A lot of big names all over the place, offense, defense, special teams. They got the coaching staff, Sarkisian at the top. As weird as it is to say, he's almost underrated. He's a phenomenal coach, recruiter, tactician, motivational guy. He checks every box. A lot of people look at who's going to be the Saban heir apparent. I don't understand how it can't be Steve Sarkisian. He's done phenomenal things. And I think this year this Texas team is poised to take another massive step forward. But it's not just those headline-grabbing names. It's under-the-radar guys that maybe made headlines, I should say, during the recruiting cycle when they were freshmen coming in, when Texas was trying to get them into the fold. Now that they're in camp, it's clear that there's a few of these guys that Texas Longhorns coaching staff is high on to be day one contributors, and there's one in particular. Let's pull up this report right here, courtesy of Longhorns Wire. From the report, putting together the number one 2025 recruiting class, the Texas Longhorns will have a special group of freshmen who can make an impact in their first years on the 40 acres. One of those players is Justice Terry, who enters a defensive tackle room where much playing time is up for grabs, following the exit of Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins to the NFL. Of course, Sorrell is too, can't forget him, really good player. The Longhorns brought in 5 transfers through the portal to compete for field time, and Terry's expected to be in the mix along them. But it seems he could also get reps in at the defensive end position, the Sorrell reference I mentioned a second ago. On Tuesday, Texas edge coach Alan Clark was asked where Terry could line up as a freshman to maximize his impact. During availability on Tuesday, Clark said the staff would look to find Terry's mismatches that best fit him situationally. He said that Terry will probably be used on the interior for third down sets, while on early downs he could line up at that big end spot to get him on the field early. Clark indicates that Terry could be a crucial, versatile member of Texas's defensive front from the start, something that the staff showed willingness to do with freshman Colin Simmons last season. I think that last sentence is very important because you're talking about a really good comparison. Look, Terry's a phenomenal prospect, elite recruit. Getting him into Texas, getting him to Austin was a phenomenal job by Sark and his staff, of course. But comparing him to Colin Simmons, just a phenom last year who did a lot of good things. In fact, let's pull up Simmons' statistics, courtesy of PFF last season. When we're talking about comparing Terry to Simmons, these are the kind of numbers we're talking about. You can see the snap counts on the left and all the grades there on the right. You can see snap counts getting bigger and bigger and better, getting more playing time, becoming a better player. You can see the grades. I mean, that's a lot of green. That's a lot of 70s, 80s, sprinkling a few 90s, a few rough performances there, but I would avoid the reds and tackling. Tackling is a weird grade at PFF. You miss one tackle in a game and your grade's going to be terrible. So ignore those for a little bit. Let's focus on the defense overall on the left and run defense and pass rush, and there's a lot of really good there. In fact, for the season, Simmons averaged 83 on defense, 73 run defense, and 90 in pass rush. That is phenomenal number stuff. That is like top 5 pick kind of numbers from a freshman. And that's exactly who Terry is compared against. And that's exactly the kind of guy that they think, in terms of relative impact, Terry will provide this Texas Longhorns defense. And if he can, I mean, it's almost unfair. And this is when I talked about the next Nick Saban, the next Alabama coming into Austin and Steve Sarkisian's crew. This is exactly what the Crimson Tide did for so many years. They just were laced with talent. A guy would go to the NFL, a guy would get hurt, a guy would whatever, and then they'd have another guy step up as a freshman or sophomore and be a superstar. That is what Texas has become, and Terry is just a perfect embodiment of that. This is the best team in football on paper. This is the best coach team in football, the most talented team in football. The fact that the Longhorns coaches are trying to find a spot. They're trying to find an opportunity to get Terry on a field as a freshman. That means he's a special playmaker. Phenomenal news for Texas, and obviously great sign for Terry that at this point, it's so early in his career, they're trying whatever they can to get this young playmaker on the field. All right, we got more to break down when it comes to Texas and Terry, but first, Texas fans, in the comment section below, we're talking defensive linemen here. So let me ask you this. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest Texas defensive lineman of all time? This is a really interesting one because you can go a lot of different ways. I mean, you can go like 100 different ways here, but you can only pick one. Who is the greatest defensive lineman, in your opinion, in Texas Longhorns history? Put them in the comment section below. Really want to hear from you guys. But when it comes to what they're trying to do with Terry and get him reps early, sometimes what can happen is that, especially if you're a big name team, which Texas obviously is, you start the season with 2 or 3 cream puffs. You play like a team I played in college. I played FCS football, Division One AA football. Is what they'd already transferred to FCS, but I still know it as D1 AA. That's what I grew up at as what it was called. But we'd play teams like Texas, and for me personally, it would be like the Clemsons of the world, and we get absolutely obliterated, right? That's not what Texas or who Texas is playing the early part of the 2025 season. Let's pull up their schedule here to highlight what I'm talking about. They open up at Ohio State, right? And then they go to Florida October 4th. And they have, of course, the Oklahoma game October 11th. The first half of the season, they got a few lighter ones there in between, but they are just incredibly challenging right at the gate. I mean, literally, their seeding for the postseason may be decided by October 12th. Right, depending on where they sit after those 3 games, what they do against Oklahoma, how they go at Florida, DJ Lagway, that's a better team than people think. And of course, they go to Ohio State. They could be looking at a number 1 overall seed, or they could be scratching and clawing for an at-large bid. And despite the challenge there, despite a lot on the table, what is Texas doing? What is their defensive coaching staff doing? They're trying to find a spot for a freshman. Why would you risk everything? Right now, you are in a championship window, undeniably so. You have a generational quarterback in Arch Manning. You have everything lining up. Why would you risk it to play a freshman unless that freshman was something special? Unless you were blown away by what that freshman was already doing and what he will do to your defense. Folks, this kid is phenomenal. I'm going to say it right now. You don't do this as a smart, well-rounded program like Texas obviously is, unless you think you have something fantastic on your hands, something stupendous. I'm going to run out of superlatives because you don't do this. People say, well, they're going to do this to, protect against the transfer. You do that if you think you're going to maybe be a top 15, top 20 team, right? You do that if you're worried about long-term recruiting. If you're trying to win a national title this year, which Texas obviously is, you don't sacrifice, well, we're worried about a defensive lineman transferring out next season. Oh boy, I'll sacrifice a national championship to make sure that defensive lineman doesn't transfer. No, of course not. That's not what's going through their head. They're trying to win now because they can. They're one of, my honest opinion, 3 or 4 teams that can't. Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon, right? Notre Dame's kind of a wild card, but I don't really, they're sort of if things break right, but we saw last season how it ended up working out for them. I think they're a good, not great team, but we'll go to those 5. We'll go Texas, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon, and Georgia. Those are the 5 teams that can win a national title, right? Penn State gets a lot of press. Love you, Penn State. Ain't happening. Yeah, you got to prove it. Okay. Alabama, look, Kalen DeBoer doing some good things. We don't think it's the same Alabama squad. I think that's 100% fair. USC, Lincoln Riley, fixing the defense, still not there yet. Questions at quarterback, right? Michigan, still a few years away, right? You look at other programs on the up. Is there anyone else that's really scaring you? You look across the SEC, Tennessee, questions at quarterback, always disappointing. I don't really think so, right? LSU can't play defense, right? Coach Kelly's done terrible down in Baton Rouge. So again, all of these other contenders that could potentially threaten a team like Texas, they have massive flaws. And even among the top bunch, Oregon, questions at quarterback. Ohio State, questions at quarterback. Notre Dame, questions at quarterback. Hey, guess what? Georgia, questions at quarterback. Texas is the only team among all the top contenders that feels great about that quarterback position. And despite that, they're willing to risk playing a freshman. Why? Because he's special, because he's that good, folks. This is what happens when you recruit phenomenally well. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up here so that you guys can see it here on your screen. Let me go back to the numbers from Colin Simmons. This is what happens when you have special. You get numbers like this. And when you get multitudes of this, when you have a Simmons and you have a Terry and all this comes together and you get this kind of production, this kind of volume from a freshman, special things can happen. We know this Texas squad, in terms of guys on offense, defense going to the NFL draft, lost a handful of talent, but they've got guys coming in. They got Simmons stepping up. They got Terry coming into the fold. This team is so freaking good, guys. I don't see a team that can beat them. Let's go back to their schedule here just to walk through this. I mean, try and talk me down in the comment section if I'm crazy. I like Ohio State. They're going to play a first-time quarterback, or whoever it's going to be. I know it's at Ohio State. I trust Sarkisian on the road. I think Texas wins. I mean, the next 3 they're going to win. They go to Florida. DJ Lagway is really good. Gainesville's a tough place to play, but I mean, Texas is better at 19 of 22 positions. Oklahoma, I mean, they've struggled. I don't know what to think there. Kentucky, I mean, let's be honest there. They're going to beat Kentucky. They're going to beat Mississippi State, Vandy. They go to Athens, Georgia. That may be their only loss of the season just because that's incredibly tough. Georgia has a little bit of Texas's number right now. And at that point, whoever's going to be playing quarterback for Georgia, Gunnar Stockton, most likely, he will have had, 8-9 games up to that point to get more under his belt to be more comfortable. So instead of, if they had played Georgia week 1, I would have given Texas the advantage. And then if they would have played Ohio State week 9 or 10 or whatever that is, I would have given Ohio State the advantage just because of the situations and the fact it was on the road. But the fact that they play Ohio State early, new quarterback, I like Texas. But they play Georgia late, new quarterback. Quarterback has had a couple months to get things under control. I like Georgia in that situation. But then you go into the SEC championship game, rematch against Georgia, most likely. We'll see what happens there. I think you probably beat the Bulldogs, and then you're on your way to the playoff again. Now, postseason success, big question mark there, but that's going to rely on Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian. Arch Manning, of course, being a phenomenal quarterback. I think he's an upgrade over Quinn Ewers. Suddenly you're looking at a deep postseason run. Can you win a title? I don't see a team that can beat them. If you look at what beat Texas the last few years, you're looking at veteran quarterbacks. Michael Penix Jr. was a grown-up. The guy's like 38 playing in the NFL. Last year, Will Howard for Ohio State. You look at, and of course, they had a lot of veteran guys. Jack Sawyer, their defensive end, of course. Guys played a lot of football, very experienced, been around the block. There's not a lot of other quarterbacks, not a lot of other teams that have that level of star player experience that can match up to Texas. I know Arch Manning is young. This is his first season starting, but one of the beauties about Arch Manning is that he's basically genetically and just by nurture as well and being around the Manning family, he's had the spotlight on him since he was about, 5 seconds old. So this is a guy who knows what it's like in the bright lights. He knows what it's like having all his attention. I don't think those pressure-filled moments will hurt him the way I think at times it limited Quinn Ewers' effectiveness a little bit. Nothing against Quinn Ewers. I think he's a good quarterback. I'm rooting for him down in Miami. But the reality was in these big moments, he didn't quite step up the way a lot of people hoped. I think Arch Manning won't have that problem. And I think this is a Texas team because of that will go all the way and win the national title this year. And I say all of that. All that's pretty much a given. I think there's nothing surprising there. And then despite all that, just going back to put a final bow on this, they want to play a freshman. That tells you how good this freshman is. They think everything is lining up, schedule, quarterback, timing, performance, conference, everything to win a national title. The stars have aligned, and they're still willing to play a freshman. Final point, that means this freshman, guys, very, very good. Phenomenal job by Texas getting him into fold, and I'm excited to see what Terry will do for this Longhorns defense starting day one.